Hey, this courtroom.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, before you is Roger Goode. Your Honor, he has a number of charges before: kidnapping, attempted murder, possession of a weapon during violent armed robbery, unlawful carrying of a pistol, criminal conspiracy, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime. Your Honor, he was arrested on January 13th, 2022, stemming from an offense date of January 6th, 2022. Your Honor, bond was denied by the magistrate. Major component in that is that the defendant's prior criminal history does make him eligible potentially for life without parole if the state were to elect to notice that in this case. Your Honor, he retains Mr. Gerald Dees on this case. Your Honor, I believe it was 2 terms of court ago. Your Honor, Judge Courtroom was presiding, at which point in time Mr. Dees moved for a bond hearing. During the commission of that bond hearing, Mr. Dees raised matters that we had not had a chance to provide him discovery yet, so the judge did not rule yet on the deciding as to whether to grant or deny bond at that point in time, and allowed us to have it revisited. We have now, of course, provided discovery to Mr. Dees. We have Detective Melton here, who is the lead investigator. I'm the prosecutor in the case. I've got the case file, and we are here on the defense's motion for bond.
Mr. Dees, how are you, sir?
Doing fine, Your Honor. Thank you. Good to see you. Your Honor, as Mr. Brown correctly indicated, we were before Judge Courtroom, like he said, about 2 terms ago, where the issue of bond was brought before the court. And basically what Judge Courtroom indicated, if I'm not mistaken, he wanted us to view the body cam video, which was part of discovery in this case, because essentially the question was whether or not it was possible for my client to have been the individual that shot the victim. And I did have a chance to look at the discovery as well as the body cam footage from the various officers that responded to the scene. And just from a factual basis, Your Honor, essentially what occurred was my client was at the El Cheapo on the Guignard here in Sumter. He and another gentleman, Deslin White, were supposed to buy, they were seeking to buy drugs from the victim in this case. They met up at the El Cheapo, basically a marijuana purchase. My client got into the front seat of the vehicle. His co-defendant, Deslin White, got into the back seat. And essentially there was a struggle between, at some point things broke down during the transaction. There was a struggle between my client, who was the front seat passenger, and a victim. The gentleman in the back seat, Deslin White, shot the victim, basically in the back. And so my client was not the individual that shot the victim. He was sitting right next to him in the passenger seat. The shot came from the back seat, which is where Deslin White, co-defendant, was seated. Because the victim's wound was in the back. It went in and went straight out of his abdomen area. And so this is actually acknowledged on the body cam tape by several of the responding officers, where they said it was clear that the shot came from the back seat, which is where the co-defendant was seated, not my client. And so I think what Judge Courtroom wanted to establish is whether or not my assertion at the last bond hearing could be supported by the video footage, where I indicated that it was impossible for my client to have been the person that inflicted the wound on the victim, because he was seated right next to it. And the actual gunshot came from the back seat, which is where his co-defendant, Deslin White, was sitting. So, I just reiterate what I said at the time of the last bond hearing, is that my client, although he was in the car, and he was part of the transaction so far as the purchase of the weed, he is not the person that shot the victim. And so, Your Honor, on that basis, we're asking the court to consider granting him a bond, Your Honor. He's 40 years old. His date of birth is August 7th, 1981. And Your Honor, I do represent him on all the charges, the pending charges. So he has an attorney of record on all charges. And I will do my part in making sure that he appears at any future court proceedings. So, Your Honor, I am asking that you consider, setting a bond on this matter.
The state sees the facts much different than the defense. And Your Honor, the facts that the state would be alleging in this case is that on January 6th and 9th, that there was a meeting at the El Chico, that Christopher Presley counsel who was in his vehicle, and that Roger Goode got into the passenger seat, front passenger seat, where Deslin White hovered over the back seat. And Your Honor, we actually have video from the El Chico showing those actions take place. You can't see what happens inside of the car on video. I've watched it, you just can't see it respectfully. But that being said, during the course of that, we have information that they were going to attempt to cheat Mr. Presley counsel out of marijuana, is what has been provided to us by some of the defendants in this case. I believe both of them have given some indication to that level. Your Honor, we have Roger Goode indicating it was Deslin White shooting. We have Deslin White indicating it was Roger Goode shooting. We have Christopher Presley counsel saying both of them shot. What we know is that in that vehicle, gunshots started in that parking lot, and Christopher Presley counsel was shot 7 times, multiple times at close to point blank range, in the lower abdomen area and the legs. Right now, actually, she told me that they had this 6-month follow-up. They're hopeful that within 2 years he may be able to over the walker, but that is the ambitious goal of all this. And then he did take 1 gunshot into the back, which we believe came from Deslin White. Your Honor, what we further had information is from witnesses on the scene is that as they were fleeing as victims, one of the individuals yelled, "Check his pockets for money," and that Roger Goode went through the victim's pockets for money. And we have now a young man who will potentially never walk again, and if he does, it will be at a much diminished capacity. We have, even in the light was favorable to the defendant, Mr. Goode, that he went to take part in an illegal transaction armed with a deadly weapon and initiated issues that would raise the danger level of it by attempting to steal from the victim offense from inside the victim's car. And now we also have someone who has a pretty awful criminal history. Your Honor, we have, I'm just going to read the bigger ones. A 2001 domestic violence high and aggravated nature, along with the domestic violence 2nd degree. We have a 2005 domestic violence high and aggravated nature. We have an attempted murder that was pled down to assault and battery of high and aggravated nature in 2010. And Your Honor, I believe that was the extent of criminal history. I will say, just because I believe in putting it all out there fairly, Mr. Goode was on a good path for quite some time. He was a victim in this case for us. This matter had been prosecuted. I think Detective Melton investigated that case, and he was a good Samaritan in that case. And I'm not going to deny that, but the problem is, he got back with Deslin White, who was a huge problem in our community. Deslin White will almost certainly be noticed for Colorado. And Roger Goode and him fell right back into the same path. And now we have someone who might never walk again. Roger Goode is eligible for life without parole on this case. He is a danger to our community. It's sad to say, because from my understanding, Mr. Goode knows the Presley Counsel family. His wife, Mr. Presley Counsel's wife, this hurts her. I mean, I was speaking with her for quite some period of time before this. She's kind of remaining neutral on the bond position just because she knows him from the community. But at the end of the day, Mr. Goode made choices on January 6th. And Your Honor, even by the statements that he provides to law enforcement, they aren't justified.
Gentlemen, both of y'all are good lawyers, good investigators. Several things that one or both of you have said throughout this matter here today. First of all, we're not here to try this case. I'm not here to find him guilty or not guilty. My sole factors are, is he a danger to the community, and is he a flight risk? I've often said that bond hearings in General Sessions Court are some of the most vexing things we can do. Me being all of us, not just myself, but you too also. In a sense, we're trying to predict the future, what somebody's going to do. I certainly can't do it. This road doesn't give me that power. The only thing, as I have said many times, that came with this road when I bought it, or cleaning instructions in the collar. Nothing else. I have to consider the history here, which is not good, Mr. Deeds. It's not a good history. And that's not to say just because he has a criminal record that I would rule a certain way. These are some violent histories here with Mr. Goode. One thing I heard several times said was, no one knows what went on in that car. Precisely. We don't know what happened in that car. I'm not so much concerned about the flight risk factor, because even though he was turning himself in, he didn't abscond to some other state or another country. He's still around. But Mr. Dees, I've got grave concerns about the danger to the community. It is regrettable that he got back involved with this person. This is one of those cases where you can choose your choice. Boy, the kickback can be bad sometimes, if he's found guilty. But it's also not good today either, because I've got to consider the other people in the community here. And Mr. Dees, with all respect, he's one of the best boys I've ever worked with. And a very straight shooter, sir. Regrettably, I'm looking out of all the days. However, as discovery develops, Mr. Dees, anytime you find there's a reasonable change of circumstances, all things you may reapply. All right, thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
If there are any newsworthy events, we will get them to you as soon as possible. If not, you can follow us on Christian News TY Facebook, you can follow us on YouTube, and you can follow us on our website.
My name is Aubrey. My name is Reagan. My name is Riley.
And my name is Robert.
For the best news,
Turn down the bass.
push that button and follow us.
This TY talking to you. If it's another, he's a phony. We need your help. If you can give a donation of $1, we promise not to holler. If you would like to give more, we thank you. Information how to give donation is at the top or bottom of this video. Thanking you in advance. Remember to look for Agnes William name along with Christian News Cash App.
Christian News TY would like to thank everyone for watching. With the cost of gas and trying to keep you updated with the news, please consider donating to help Christian News TY today.